The afternoon light spilled softly through the wide kitchen windows of the Bennett mansion in Connecticut. Dust particles floated lazily in the beams of light, and the hum of a dishwasher filled the quiet air. Sofia folded a crisp white napkin for the 10th time, her eyes drifting toward the garden, where children's laughter carried on the wind. She had been the live-in maid for 3 months now, quiet, efficient, invisible. The Bennetts were one of those old money families with long hallways, oil paintings of ancestors, and rules about how servants should walk, talk, and even breathe. But Sofia had grown used to invisibility. It gave her time to think and to hide. In the servants' quarters, down the narrow corridor behind the kitchen, a soft tune played from a small Bluetooth speaker. That was Malik, the gardener's assistant, the one with sunburned skin, a Brooklyn accent, and a smile that could melt through winter. He was humming to a song from an old cassette tape he said belonged to his mother. When Sofia passed by the open doorway, he looked up, grinning. "Hey, Sof," he said. "You keep folding those napkins like you're preparing for a royal wedding." She smiled faintly. "Maybe I am. Mrs. Bennett checks every crease." Malik chuckled and stepped closer, brushing a bit of soil off his hands. "They don't pay us enough to care that much." "They pay us to survive," she replied softly, almost to herself. There was a brief silence, one of those delicate pauses when two people begin to see more than they should. Malik noticed her fingers trembling slightly as she placed the folded napkins in a tray. "Are you all right?" he asked. Sofia nodded, though her eyes betrayed something heavier. "I'm fine, just tired," but Malik wasn't convinced. He'd seen her flinch once when the doorbell rang, and again when the Bennett's eldest son Damien entered the kitchen unexpectedly. There was fear in her stillness, something that didn't belong to a simple maid's fatigue. That evening, after everyone had gone upstairs, Sofia sat alone near the servants' quarters' small window, the one that overlooked the driveway. She saw the Bennett's black SUV pull in, Damien stepping out, his face half lit by the headlights. He was talking on the phone, his voice sharp, irritated. Sofia's breath caught. She ducked below the window until the sound of the car door closing faded. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "Not tonight. Please, not tonight." From the doorway behind her, Malik's quiet voice broke the silence. "Sofia, what's wrong?" She turned, startled, eyes wide and tear-bright. "Nothing," she whispered too quickly. Malik took a slow step forward, lowering his voice. "You're hiding something, aren't you?" Sofia looked at him, torn between trust and fear. And though the room was dim, Malik could see that her secret, whatever it was, had followed her all the way to this mansion. The next morning arrived wrapped in the soft chill of autumn. Mist hung over the Bennett estate like thin silk, and the scent of freshly cut grass floated in from the gardens. The servants began their quiet routine before sunrise, silverware polished, breakfast trays arranged, uniforms pressed. But inside Sofia's small room, the light took longer to reach her. She sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing the same grey uniform, holding a torn photograph between her trembling fingers. The picture showed a younger version of her, no uniform, no fear, standing beside a man in a police jacket. His arm rested on her shoulder protectively. The corners of the photo were singed, as though someone had tried to destroy it. Her eyes glistened as she whispered, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Sofia?" Malik's voice came from the other side. She hid the photograph beneath the mattress before opening the door. He was holding a tray of coffee and 2 muffins. "Breakfast delivery," he said with a grin, trying to lighten her mood. "You didn't come to the kitchen, so I figured—" "I wasn't feeling well," she murmured, looking away. Malik set the tray on the small table and leaned against the wall. "You've been saying that a lot lately." She gave a weak smile. "Maybe because it's true." He studied her face carefully, the dark circles, the anxious glances, the way her fingers twisted the edge of her sleeve. "You're scared of someone," he said quietly. "Is it Damien?" Sofia froze. "Why would you say that?" "Because I've seen the way you look at him. Like you're waiting for something bad to happen." She didn't reply. The silence itself was the answer. That evening, when the Bennetts hosted a charity dinner, the mansion glittered with chandeliers and piano music. Sofia moved silently between guests, refilling glasses and clearing plates, her uniform spotless, her smile practiced. Damien sat at the head of the long dining table, handsome, confident, and drunk on his own charm. When he spoke, everyone listened. When he laughed, the room followed. But every time his eyes met Sofia's, something darker passed between them, a silent recognition, a shared history that no one else in the room could see. Once he brushed past her near the kitchen doorway, close enough that she could smell the cologne she once hated. "You thought I wouldn't find you again," he whispered, his voice low, threatening. "You really thought hiding in my mother's house would save you?" Her hand shook as she placed a dish on the counter. "Please," she whispered, "not here." He smiled coldly. "Oh, I won't do anything here. But we'll talk later," Malik noticed. From the far end of the corridor, he saw the tension in Sofia's body, the way her eyes darted toward the back door like a trapped bird searching for escape. When the guests finally left and the lights dimmed, he found her sitting outside by the servants' entrance, shivering under her thin shawl. "Sofia," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "Whatever this is, whoever he is, you don't have to face it alone." Tears streamed down her face. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If he tells them who I really am, I'll lose everything." Malik frowned. "Who you really are?" She looked at him then, the truth trembling on her lips. "I wasn't always a maid," she said. 2 years ago I was in witness protection. My real name isn't Sofia, and Damien Bennett. He's the reason I had to disappear." For a long moment, the night seemed to hold its breath. Only the distant hum of crickets filled the silence between them. Malik stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in slowly, piece by piece. "Witness protection?" he repeated, disbelief and concern tangled in his voice. "Sofia, or whatever your name really is, what happened?" Her eyes glistened in the faint porch light. "My real name is Layla. Layla Navarro," she said, voice shaking, but firm. 2 years ago, I testified against a man Damien was protecting. A politician involved in laundering money and people. Damien worked for him, handled the transfers, the threats, the cover-ups. When I discovered what he was doing, I turned him in. But the trial collapsed, the witnesses disappeared, and the agent who handled my case was murdered. She pressed her palms together, breathing unevenly. The program moved me here under a new name, told me never to contact anyone, never to stay in one place too long. But somehow, Damien found me, and now he's back. Malik's chest tightened. He'd met women who carried heartbreak, but this was different. She carried danger. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" he asked. "I was afraid," she whispered. "The last person I trusted ended up dead." For a long time, neither spoke. The porch light flickered above them, moths circling around it like restless ghosts. Malik sat beside her on the cold step. "Layla," he said softly, testing her real name for the first time. "I don't care who you used to be. You're not alone now." But she shook her head. "You don't understand what kind of man Damien is. He doesn't destroy people with guns or fists. He destroys them with power. He owns everyone, even the silence." Malik looked out toward the mansion, its tall windows glowing faintly in the dark. "Then we find a way to make him lose that power," he said quietly. The next day, Damien acted as though nothing had happened. He strolled through the mansion's gardens with his sunglasses on, giving orders to the staff with smooth cruelty, trimming hedges, polishing cars, scrubbing floors that were already clean. Every command was a reminder that he could bend anyone's time, anyone's dignity to his will. Sofia, Layla, kept her head down, scrubbing the marble hallway near the grand staircase. Malik watched from outside through the open window, pretending to tend the rose bushes. Their eyes met once. A fleeting, dangerous moment of connection. "New rules," Damien said suddenly, stepping close. "No one leaves the property without my permission. The world is not as safe as you think, Sofia." His tone dripped with mock sweetness. "Wouldn't want anything bad to happen to you again?" Layla's knuckles went white around the handle of the mop. "Yes, sir," she murmured. When he finally walked away, Malik slipped in through the side door. "He's watching you," he whispered urgently. "You can't stay here." "I have nowhere else," she said. "And if I run, he'll find me faster." Malik exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Then we make him slip. We get proof. Something that ties him to what he did. You said he worked for that politician, right? If we can find..." Layla cut him off sharply. You don't know what you're asking for. Those people don't keep records lying around. But Damien is arrogant, Malik said. Men like him always keep souvenirs, trophies of what they've done. Layla hesitated, then lowered her voice. There's a safe in his study. I saw it once when I first started here. He keeps files, passports, even cash. But the code, we'll find it, Malik said. That night, when the mansion went dark and the last car left the driveway, the two of them slipped through the servant corridor like shadows. The air was heavy with the scent of polished wood and candle wax. Malik's flashlight beam trembled against the wall as they reached the study door, a dark oak panel with brass handles and the faint hum of a digital lock. Layla's pulse thundered in her ears. If we get caught, we're done, she whispered. Malik's eyes met hers. Then we don't get caught. They entered. The study smelled of whiskey and old money, leather chairs, framed photos of Damien with powerful men, a mahogany desk scattered with papers. Layla moved toward the portrait above the fireplace, a painted image of Damien's late father. She remembered that was where the safe was hidden. She pressed the frame gently. It swung open on silent hinges, revealing the steel door behind it. Now what? Malik asked. Layla reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver key, a relic she had stolen from Damien's drawer weeks earlier, not even knowing if it would help. She slipped it into the secondary lock, turned it once, then twice. The mechanism clicked. The safe door opened halfway. Inside were bundles of cash, hard drives, passports, and a folder marked Navarro in neat capital letters. Layla's breath caught. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside were copies of her testimony, photos of her old apartment, and worst of all, a single letter addressed to her, written in Damien's sharp handwriting. You can run, Layla, but the past doesn't forget its debts. Before she could process it, a voice came from the doorway, smooth, cold, unmistakable. Well, Damien said, leaning against the frame with a gun in one hand and a glass of scotch in the other. Isn't this a touching little reunion? Layla froze. Malik's hand went to his pocket, where he'd hidden his phone. Damien smiled wider. Go on, he said. Call whoever you think can save you. Just remember, I own the silence here. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, echoing through the room as if counting down something inevitable. Layla looked at Malik, then at the letter in her hand and realized that her secret hadn't just been found. It had been waiting. The night wind rattled the tall glass windows of the study as Damien's shadow stretched across the floor. Layla's breath came in short bursts, her back pressed against the desk, the letter still trembling in her hand. Malik stood just beside her, his pulse thundering in his ears. Damien's smirk never wavered, calm, elegant, cruel. I was wondering when you'd try this, he said, setting the glass of scotch down on the edge of the table. I must admit I'm impressed. Most people run when they see me again. You, Layla, always had a little too much courage for your own good. Malik stepped in front of her instinctively. If you touch her, Damien laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. Touch her? My dear gardener, I don't need to touch her. I already own her. He lifted the gun slightly. You see, when people disappear, they become stories. And I control stories. I can make her a thief, a liar, and illegal. The police won't question me. Layla's fear turned to fury. You think you can bury the truth forever? Damien's eyes glinted. Forever is a long time. But yes, I've been doing a fine job so far. For a second, no one moved. The only sound was the ticking of the antique clock on the mantelpiece. Then from behind Damien, a faint vibration broke the stillness, a phone buzzing against the wooden counter. His eyes flicked to it. Malik's heart leapt. In that split moment, Malik lunged. The two men crashed into the desk, scattering papers and shattering the scotch glass. Damien's gun went skidding across the carpet. Layla dove for it, but the weapon stopped inches from her fingers. Damien kicked it away and grabbed her wrist, twisting hard. Still fighting, he hissed. I always liked that about you. Malik got up, blood on his lip, rage burning through him. He swung once, a solid hit that sent Damien stumbling back into the shelves. Books rained down. Get out, Layla, Malik shouted, but Layla didn't run. She grabbed the letter, stuffed it into her uniform pocket, and threw open the window instead. This isn't over, she said. Not this time. She and Malik jumped down into the garden, landing hard on the wet grass. The air outside was sharp, filled with the scent of rain and pine. Behind them, Damien's voice roared through the night, furious, echoing through the estate like thunder. They ran until their lungs burned. The estate stretched endlessly, hedges and trees swallowing the moonlight. When they finally stopped by the tool shed near the gardener's cottage, Layla collapsed against the wall, gasping. Malik crouched beside her, holding her shoulders. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "We can't go to the police. He owns them. Then we go above him," Malik said. "Feds, media, anyone who'll listen." Layla shook her head. "They'll think I'm a liar. They always do. He has evidence that I killed someone." Malik froze. "What?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. "It was an accident. A night that went wrong. He set me up. Said if I didn't cooperate, he'd tell the world I was a murderer. That's why I testified. That's why they hid me." For a long moment, Malik said nothing. Then he reached out and took her hand. "Then we clear your name," he said simply. "We start tonight." They waited until dawn. The mansion's lights went out one by one, and the early morning fog crept back over the lawns. Malik snuck inside first through the kitchen door, using the keys he had copied months ago. The smell of bleach and coffee still lingered from the night's chaos. Layla followed, keeping low, her pulse steady now, fear replaced by resolve. They returned to the study. The safe stood open, the papers gone. Damien had moved fast, of course, Layla muttered bitterly. He cleans his sins before breakfast. "Maybe not all of them," Malik said, scanning the desk. He lifted a small flash drive half hidden beneath a coaster. "He missed something." Layla grabbed it. "We need to see what's inside." They fled again to Malik's quarters near the greenhouse, small, cramped but hidden. Malik connected the flash drive to his old laptop. The screen flickered, revealing dozens of encrypted folders. One stood out, labeled simply Ledger 2. Inside were names, dates and bank transfers, the same politician, the same crimes Layla had testified about. Proof. But before they could celebrate, the laptop screen went black. A message appeared in red. Device traced. Malik's blood ran cold. He's tracking this. He knows. Outside, the sound of tires screeching tore through the quiet morning. Headlights cut across the fog. Black SUVs, more than one, rolled through the Bennett gates. Layla grabbed Malik's hand, eyes wide. "He's bringing them here." "Who?" "The people I ran from." Malik turned off the laptop, yanked out the flash drive and shoved it into his jacket. "Then we run again." They slipped out through the back of the greenhouse, the dew-drenched grass muffling their footsteps. The morning sun began to rise, casting gold light over the estate, a cruel contrast to the fear chasing them. As they reached the stone wall at the far edge of the property, a voice called out behind them, amplified by a speaker. "Layla Navarro." She stopped dead. The voice was not Damien's, it was calm, official. "This is Agent Rachel Turner with the FBI. You are under federal protection. Put your hands where I can see them." Malik turned, confused. A team of agents stood behind SUVs, weapons lowered, badges shining. Layla's heart raced. How did they... Damien stepped forward from the group, hands in his pockets, smirking. "I told you, darling. I own the silence. Even theirs." Before she could speak, an agent cuffed her wrists. Malik tried to protest, but another officer held him back. Layla's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him. "Don't believe what they say. Please, Malik, don't let them make me disappear again." As the cars drove away and the gates closed behind them, Malik stood in the rising light, holding only the flash drive, the one piece of truth left in his hand. And somewhere inside the mansion, Damien Bennett poured himself another glass of scotch. Watching the road through his window, he whispered to himself, "The past always comes home." The sound of the gates clanging shut echoed long after the SUVs disappeared down the winding road. Malik stood motionless near the greenhouse, his clothes streaked with soil, his heart thudding in disbelief. The flash drive in his hand felt heavier than any weapon. He replayed every second in his mind. Layla's face pressed against the car window, her lips forming the same words again and again. "Don't let them make me disappear." The mansion behind him stood silent, the early morning sunlight turning the windows into mirrors. Somewhere inside, Damien Bennett was sipping coffee, already orchestrating his next move. Malik turned away and began to run. Hours later, He found himself sitting on a bench at a deserted train station 2 towns away. The air smelled of rain and rust. A freight train rumbled by slowly, the metal screech echoing through his skull. His hands shook as he powered on the laptop again, this time inside an abandoned waiting room with boarded windows. The flash drive loaded instantly. The files still opened. Names, coded accounts, offshore banks, political donations. It wasn't just money laundering. It was trafficking. Weapons, corruption reaching into government offices and police precincts. Damien wasn't just a rich heir. He was a handler. One folder caught Malik's eye. A series of recorded phone calls. He clicked play. Damien Bennett. She's unstable. You'll get what you need from her testimony, but make sure she doesn't speak again. Unknown male. And the agent? Damien. Handle it quietly. Malik's stomach twisted. This was the missing piece. Proof that Damien had orchestrated the murder of the federal agent who once protected Layla. But then, another file, Navarro report final. He opened it and froze. Subject Layla Navarro, risk level high. Compromised witness. May possess secondary evidence not logged. If recovered, neutralize quietly. Authorization R. Turner, Agent Rachel Turner, the same woman who had arrested Layla that morning. His pulse raced. So even the FBI's in it. The sound of approaching footsteps made him shut the laptop. A shadow fell across the cracked glass window. Mr. Malik Rahman, a woman's voice said softly. He spun around. Agent Turner stood at the door, alone, no gun in hand, no team behind her. The morning light made her expression unreadable. You're a hard man to find, she said. Malik's eyes narrowed. Where is she? Safe, Turner replied. In custody for now. But not for long, and if you do exactly what I say. He didn't move. You're the one who signed off on her being neutralized, Turner sighed, leaning against the wall. Then you've seen too much already. Listen carefully. Damien's reach doesn't stop at the Bureau. Half of the task force is on his payroll. I've been trying to expose him for 2 years. Layla was my last witness. But the case collapsed because the evidence disappeared. That evidence you now have. Malik's grip on the flash drive tightened. Why should I trust you? Because, Turner said quietly, he's planning to make her vanish tonight. And if he does, that file becomes her obituary. By dusk, the plan was set. Turner arranged a decoy transfer, a van that would move Layla to a federal holding facility. In reality, Malik would intercept it halfway to the city. Rain began to fall as he waited near the overpass, the headlights of passing trucks blurring into ribbons of light. The air smelled of asphalt and stormwater. His mind raced. He wasn't a criminal, not a spy, just a gardener who'd fallen in love with a woman who carried too many ghosts. At 8:47 p.m., the black van appeared. 2 bureau cars followed behind it. Malik stepped into the road wearing a raincoat and cap, pretending to be a traffic officer. The van slowed. The moment it did, Turner's call came through on his earpiece. Right now, he pulled a small EMP device, the kind used for electrical fencing, and pressed it against the van's fender. The lights flickered. The engine stalled. Confused agents climbed out, shouting. Then Turner's own SUV came screeching from the opposite direction. She stepped out and flashed her badge. Transfer orders changed, she barked. Move her into my custody, now. The agents hesitated, long enough for Malik to slip to the back of the van. He yanked open the door. Inside, Layla sat with her wrists cuffed, drenched in fear and confusion. Malik? She gasped. No time, he said, cutting the ties with a stolen key. We're leaving. Outside, chaos broke loose, shouting, tires spinning, the crack of a warning shot. Malik and Layla sprinted into the rain, their feet splashing through puddles as they disappeared into the underpass. They didn't stop running until they reached the edge of the river, a dark, endless current swallowing the storm. Under a flickering streetlight, Layla fell to her knees, breathless. Where do we even go now? She whispered. Malik crouched beside her, holding up the flash drive. Somewhere this truth can't be buried. She looked at him, not as a maid, not as a witness, but as a woman who had been fighting alone too long. And if we fail? He smiled faintly. Then at least we tried before they wrote our ending for us. Before she could respond, a sound echoed across the bridge. Tires, engines, voices. Damien's voice. I told you, he called through the rain, calm and certain. You can run, Layla, but everything that touches me dies trying to leave. Malik helped her to her feet. The storm raged around them. In the distance, blue lights flashed, sirens drawing near. Layla turned to Malik, her voice breaking. "Then let's make sure the world hears us before it's too late." And together, drenched and trembling, they ran toward the city lights, carrying the flash drive, the truth and the hope that maybe, this time, silence would finally break. The night bled into dawn without pause. Rain poured down in silver sheets over the sleeping city, washing its streets clean but never its sins. The river behind them glimmered under the orange glow of passing headlights as Malik and Layla stumbled through the maze of alleyways, soaked to the bone, clutching the flash drive like it was the last proof that they were still alive. Layla's breath came in shallow bursts. Every sound, a siren in the distance, a door slamming, a car engine, made her flinch. Malik noticed and gently pulled her close beneath the shadow of a bridge. "He won't stop," she whispered. "He'll hunt us until we're ghosts." "Then we don't give him that chance," Malik said, gripping her shoulder firmly. "We go public. You wanted to hide, Layla, but the only way out of the dark is to stand in the light." Her eyes lifted to meet his. There was exhaustion there, years of running, of being silenced, of never belonging anywhere. "You think people will listen to us?" she asked softly. "To a maid and a gardener?" Malik smiled faintly through the rain. "People believe stories more than they believe power. And you've got a story no one can bury anymore." By mid-morning, they reached the heart of the city, a sprawl of traffic, neon signs, and steaming food stalls. The air smelled of coffee, gasoline, and possibility. They found refuge in a rundown internet cafe tucked behind a laundromat. Inside, old monitors hummed under flickering lights. The owner, an elderly Bangladeshi man, looked up from his newspaper. $2 an hour, he said. "Coffee's free if you don't mind it burnt." Malik dropped a crumpled bill on the counter. "We'll take an hour," he said. In the corner, Layla sat before the old computer. Malik connected the flash drive and watched the screen flood with files again. The ledger, the recordings, the signed orders, all of it. "We can send this to every journalist we find," he said. Layla hesitated. "If we do that, they'll know where we are. Damien's men will find us first. Then we make sure it doesn't matter," Malik said. "Once this goes live, they can't erase it." He opened an anonymous email server and began typing, short, precise, impossible to trace. He attached everything. Then, one by one, he entered the addresses of news agencies, investigative reporters, and human rights watchdogs. Layla's hand covered his. "Wait," she said softly. "Let me do it." She took a deep breath, placed her finger on the key, and pressed send. For a long moment, they both stared at the screen. Nothing happened. Then, one by one, the files began to upload. Progress bars blinked green. The storm outside thundered, as if the sky itself was bearing witness. When the final file was sent, Malik leaned back, exhausted. "It's done," he whispered. But Layla's expression was strange, relief mixed with dread. "No," she said quietly. "It's just beginning." 2 hours later, the first article went live. Breaking news. Evidence. Leaked in Bennett corruption scandal. FBI infiltration alleged. Then another. Whistleblower identified. Former witness. Layla Navarro reveals federal cover-up. By noon, it was everywhere. Television, social media, podcasts, independent channels. The Bennett's name was on every screen, every radio broadcast. The world had just met the truth Damien had spent years burying, but victory was never clean. Malik noticed the reflection of flashing lights on the window before he heard the engines. "They found us," he said, standing quickly. Layla's heart leapt. Outside, 2 black SUVs screeched to a stop. Armed men poured out, faces hidden, movements rehearsed. Malik grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the back exit. They ran through the narrow alley, puddles splashing beneath their feet. Gunfire cracked the air, sharp, echoing off wet brick. A bullet tore through a trash can inches away. Malik shoved Layla down behind a dumpster. "Stay low!" he shouted. "I'm not leaving you!" she cried. He glanced around the corner, 2 men closing in fast. Malik looked back at her, his eyes soft even in the chaos. "If they take me, you run." "Don't stop running." Malik, no, but before she could finish, the back door of the cafe burst open again. This time federal agents, real ones, with badges glinting in the rain. "Drop your weapons," one of them shouted at Damien's men. Gunfire erupted, deafening and chaotic. In the middle of it, Layla and Malik crawled toward a parked van, shielding their heads. Then a sudden familiar voice cut through the noise. "Layla," it was Agent Rachel Turner. She ducked behind the van, blood streaking her sleeve but determination blazing in her eyes. "You did it," she said breathlessly. "The files, everyone's seen them. Damien's finished. They're raiding his properties right now." Layla stared at her in disbelief. You weren't working for him?" Turner shook her head. "I was pretending to. The only way to expose them was to play along until the truth surfaced. You two just gave it to the world." Malik looked back toward the cafe. Damien's men were either dead or detained. Sirens screamed from every direction as police and federal vehicles flooded the street. The chaos slowly began to still. For the first time in years, Layla felt air fill her lungs freely. By sunset, the news was everywhere. Damien Bennett, arrested in federal raid, multiple agents. Under investigation. Layla Navarro, declared innocent. Corruption network exposed. Servants. Who changed the system? The gardener and the maid. Who fought back? The city buzzed with disbelief. Talk shows debated, papers ran specials, and the Bennett's mansion stood sealed off behind yellow tape, silent and haunted. In a quiet diner near the outskirts, Layla and Malik sat across from each other in borrowed clothes, sipping black coffee. The television above them replayed Damien's arrest, his face pale, eyes hollow, as agents led him into a waiting car. "You did it," Malik said softly. Layla looked at him, her expression unreadable. "We did it." A pause passed between them, long and heavy with unspoken memories. The first time they met in the servants' corridor. The night she told him her name, the garden where everything began. "What happens now?" he asked. Layla smiled faintly, looking out the window at the fading orange sky. "Now we stop hiding. Maybe we find a small town, a real home, somewhere no one knows the Bennetts or the name Navarro." Malik nodded. "And what do we tell people about us?" She turned back to him, her eyes gentle. "That we met in a house full of lies," she said. "And somehow we built our truth." He laughed softly. "I'll take that." The rain had stopped outside. The street glowed under lamplight, clean and quiet at last. Somewhere beyond the city, the world was already moving on. New scandals, new stories. But for Malik and Layla, the silence was enough. They walked out of the diner hand in hand, past the puddles that reflected the soft lights of passing cars, leaving behind the shadows of the mansion that had once trapped them. Above them, dawn began to rise again, not the kind that burned, but the kind that healed. And for the first time in years, Layla Navarro, no longer a maid, no longer a fugitive, breathed without fear. Far away, behind bars, Damien Bennett sat in a federal cell, staring at a small folded photograph he had kept hidden in his jacket. It was old, creased and torn, but on it 2 servants smiled beside the mansion garden. He stared at their faces for a long time before closing his eyes. "Even stories have servants," he murmured, "but this one got away." And somewhere across the endless stretch of a quiet American highway, Malik and Layla kept driving. 2 names reborn under the same rising light, heading toward the life that truth had finally earned them.